The Geekorama podcast is brought to you by superherofiction.com, the one-stop shop for novels featuring the superpowered heroes we all love. Your hosts are
Trish Heinrich, author of the Vigilante Superhero Universe.
And I'm Jeremy Flagg, author of the Children of Notre Dame universe.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Trish.
How are you?
I wonder if it ever gets natural to start these openings. The hi, audience of people who are watching, of names we don't know.
Yeah, all of you out there in La La Land, wherever you're at.
I think it's going to always be awkward. And
I think it is.
And I stare at like my little camera. I'm staring directly into it. And behind it is a quilt my mother made. And all I can see is Captain America on the quilt.
Oh my God.
So Captain is staring at me.
That's not a bad view, I suppose.
I think he's judging me.
Is he judging you? He's judging your YouTube and podcast abilities, like.
Oh, it wouldn't shock me at all. So randomly,
Yes.
kind of funny story. So I'm a creative writing professor at Southern New Hampshire University, and I am currently teaching a class to students who are eventually going to be college professors. That's what this class is all about. And so this week we're talking about self-promotion. So it's kind of like I never talk about my individual books.
Yeah.
I say, I'm a published writer, and if you want to see my website, here it is. You can validate me, knock yourself out. But this week I had to literally promote myself, like as part of the exercise to demonstrate for them was talking about the goods and the bad of self-promotion. And what I realized is, wow, we're on a lot of platforms.
Yes.
I did a little video, and then I put links to all the things, and I realized it was just link after link after link after link. So if the students of Southern New Hampshire University are watching this, go do your homework.
That's all I got to say.
I had to do it on my Facebook page and Instagram as well, just to make sure they knew I was watching them.
Get it in there, yeah. How was your week been?
It's been good. I just got done with my day job, had a week off.
Nice.
Yay, February break. And I wound up getting a lot of writing done, which was good. It was fairly traumatic. I realized I need to stop abusing my characters so much.
But do you really? Because that's conflict.
It bordered on disturbing enough that when I was done writing it, I shut my laptop and walked away.
Egads.
I was uncomfortable with the human that wrote that scene. So,
oh my God. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like.
No, and I can't even go into it because it's dark and it's.
Okay.
I've written zombie apocalypse. I've nuked half of the United States in one of my books. And even this reached a new plateau.
Wow. Now I'm very curious to read it. I gotta be honest.
And then on the flip side, now writing superhero romance.
Woohoo!
So that's my big to-do this week is I bumped into a friend of mine in Starbucks, and she said she was working on this anthology, and I said, well, shoot it my way and I'll check it out. So I am writing some superhero romance, and it is I always say that I'm going to write some hardcore smut, and then it fades to black because I'm too embarrassed to do it. But no, this time I'm going to smut it up.
You're going to do it. It is hard. I've tried to write the really steamy romance scenes, and I am so uncomfortable. For somebody that, I like reading those scenes, but I am so uncomfortable writing them, and I realized, I'm like, wow, it takes real skill to do this. It really does.
I could have this conversation with the little old lady in the line at the grocery store, and that wouldn't faze me. But writing it out and it just
Yeah, I
like
know.
romance writers. I know you get crap all over the place, but really, you have like wills and constitutions made of iron. Like, bravo
Yes.
to you.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I agree with you.
So we'll see. I'm shooting to get it done in a whole week. So uh,
Wow.
I got the opening scene done, and my character is quite vulnerable and just ripe for the picking.
Oh, God.
I may never write a romance again in my life. Like, I might actually be told by the governing body of all romance that I should never write this.
Or it'll just be awesome. Like it will be so good.
You know what I'm actually worried about? Have you ever listened to the podcast? My father wrote a porno.
Oh my God, no, but now I really want to.
It is exactly what you think it is. And this guy found out his dad wrote a porno. And he made a podcast where he and two of his friends read the porno.
No.
And
Oh my God.
I'm pretty sure the dad knows it's happening and names have been changed around and whatnot. But so the son is reading it. And I mean, it's like the terminology that is used is exactly what you would hope it would be. And the two friends are just on the sidelines snickering and asking the thought-provoking questions. Like, it just... I listened to the
Wow.
first chapter on an airplane and I had to shut it off because my face was so red.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so if you have not, some quality listening for all of you.
If you're an adult, and I hope you're an adult listening to this.
Definitely, I'm pretty sure it's called my... It's either my dad wrote a porno or my father wrote a porno podcast.
Oh my God.
Um, and who knew superhero romance was going to take us there?
Yeah, that was but it works. I mean, it's a rabbit trail that I could follow back to the original source. So there we have it.
So, what are you working on?
Oh my gosh. So it's so last week you had the whole week off. My girls had the first 2 days of the week off. And I'll be honest, like February might be a short month, but it feels like it goes forever. It really does. And so it has been a really long, it's been a hard month, honestly. And I think I've just been trying to survive. Like if I can get to March, I'll be okay. But I'm waiting with bated breath for the full version of my audiobook. My first audiobook for Serpent's Return is due on Saturday. And the last time I looked, there was an hour out of the 11 hours that was supposed to be delivered. I only had an hour of it, and I was like, okay, I'm getting a little scared now. So,
I'm
yeah.
I have a weird situation because I'm actually friends with my narrator. She's the reason I live where I live.
Oh my gosh.
So she lives on the other side of my town, and I actually got an email later this week saying like, "Hey, I'm going to be submitting everything. So let me know if there's any edits." And like in between the lines, why the heck aren't you doing your job? Where are my edits already?
Oh my God. You're like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Robin.
I'm writing superhero porn. I'm sorry.
The best part is I can only in the second book of my superhero series, there's a sex scene, and it's not super graphic, but it's graphic enough that anatomy gets used.
Okay.
And listening to her read it was disturbing enough, and then realizing that she is verbally interpreting my dirty mind made it even worse.
Wow.
And then let's take it one step further. My mother proofing the narrator interpreting my dirty words.
Dude, you have a twisted, interesting life. like I can't even top that. I'm not even going to touch it.
Thankfully, my mother just glosses over and we kind of don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's best not to bring that up at family dinners, I would imagine.
Okay, so with that segue,
We're going to
Um,
talk about pop culture history, and it's not going to be dirty. I promise.
let's hear some pop culture history.
All right. So, for our last week of February, in 1940, the radio show The Adventures of Superman first premiered. And what's really cool about the radio show is they basically took the radio show and they made the Superman television show. The very classic, iconic one. I'm sure everybody's probably like seen clips. It's the black. It started off as black and white, and I think the last few seasons of it were in color. And but yeah, in 1940 this month, the Superman radio show first premiered, and then in 1960, the Justice League first premiered in The Brave and the Bold #28, written by Gardner Fox, and that surprised me that it was 1960. I thought the Justice League had premiered earlier than that, but no, it was the JLA.
Do you know that I just
Or
discovered
JSA.
that the Hall of Justice came after the Watchtower?
After it? I thought the Watchtower came after the Hall of Justice.
No, the Watchtower was destroyed, and then the Hall of Justice was developed.
Huh.
I don't know why that shocked me, but it did.
Well, because it feels like they should be reversed. I don't know.
And
The Watchtower in and of itself is very problematic, if you ask me. Like,
and the greatest thing is if you go to Six Flags New England, you can literally go inside the Hall of Justice. It's kind of awesome.
seriously. Oh,
Yeah.
that is awesome.
It's kind of fun.
So the last one, and this is so much fun because I remember this movie in the theater.
Yeah.
Wayne's World premiered in theaters in 1992 and became the 8th highest grossing film of that year, and is, I believe to this day, the highest grossing film based off of an SNL skit.
The what was the song that Tia Carrara sang in that?
Oh, I know this one.
Everyone's hearing it in their head right now.
Yeah.
Ballroom Blitz.
I just was gonna say it. Yes.
It still to this day is one of my most played songs on my iPod.
I love that song. I love it.
That I think that movie, along with Clueless, probably spawned the most used language of my youth.
Yes, I would agree with that. Absolutely. It was all, I mean, all of my friends were talking like the characters in Wayne's World. All of us. It did not matter.
And so help me God, if Queen came on while you were in the car,
You had to. You have to.
you just had to, and you would just watch cars swerve. It was horrible.
Well, and fun little tidbit. So the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a horrid train wreck of a film, I hate to say, but it is. But oh my God, Mike Myers in the movie. He has this great scene. So he's the guy. He's the record executive, and famously, the record executive that was putting out the records for Queen didn't like Bohemian Rhapsody. He was like, nobody is going to want to listen to this song. It's so long. He's like, what, you think about, and this is the line that Mike Myers like requested to put in the film. Do you honestly think a bunch of kids are going to ride around in their car wanting to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody?
And I think my favorite thing about it is it's got to be one of the most misheard lyric songs in the world.
Yes.
Everyone has invented their own language for it.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, if you look at what they're really saying, and then you're kind of disappointed. You're like, oh, but I liked mine better. So.
I still just kind of hum along.
Yeah, it is really long, but I love it actually. I love that song. All right, so that is our pop culture history for February.
So for this week, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to be doing this at the end of every month. So it'll come out on the last Thursday of every month. We're going to be doing a kind of a book club revolving around a novel, comics, something along that lines. So it's going to be generally science fiction-y, superhero related
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah, maybe some fantasy in there.
Yeah,
It's going to be like probably like fantasy science fiction. We're going to try to have something having to do with superheroes, but some months we might not swing that. So
I can always find something to read comic book
you
wise.
read more comics than I do, so that'll be a lot easier for you.
I may have read like 30 of them just today, and that was I probably should actually do some work once in a while. Okay, so do you want to get started
Yeah,
with your book?
I do. And I do want to say that if you want, if you're a listener or you're watching on YouTube and you want the book club selections so that you could kind of know a little bit deeper about what we're talking about, you can find the selections on Facebook, our Superhero Fiction Readers Facebook group. We post the selections there at the beginning of every month with links to where you can find them, and you can discuss in the show or in the comments what you thought of the books when we do our book club episode. If you'd like to join us,
And if you're not on Facebook and you just want to talk, shoot us an email because
yes.
it's not like we're doing a whole podcast about being geeks. So,
Yes, we would love to geek out with you.
so what did you read this month?
I read, so for my February book club book, I read Dreadnought by April Daniels. And it's been on my TBR, my to be read list for about a year now. And I am so glad that I finally got around to it.
It pops up on a lot of lists.
It does. And it is really, really good. The thing about it is, with superhero books, there aren't a lot of variety in terms of LGBTQ representation. So the few books that have really good representation tend to get talked about a lot. And this is one of them. So April Daniels is herself a transgender woman. And you can tell that this book, which has a transgender protagonist, is written by somebody who has been there. So the basic premise of the book is Danny is around 16, 17 years old and is a transgender woman, but is not out as a transgender woman. Her family, and in particular her father, has really been trying to make a man out of her. And so she has this ritual where she goes and she buys a bottle of nail polish at the drugstore, and then she goes to this secluded place and she takes off the nail polish from her toes and she paints her toes. It's like the only way to express her true gender identity. So one night she's doing this and this superhero battle takes place right above her head. And the world is a very like near future, but and in like almost like an alternate reality. So it's set in Seattle, but the Seattle looks very different from what it is right now. The author references places like Tacoma and Puyallup and things like that, but it's a near future setting. So anyway, superhero battle right above her, and one of the world's strongest heroes is killed, and he lands right near her. So she goes to him to see if he needs any help. And he ends up, right before he dies, transferring his powers to her. And so one of the byproducts, I guess you could say, of Dreadnought's powers, and she's the third Dreadnought, so this has like been passed from person to person. One of the things that happens with this particular power is the person gets their ideal body. And so because she's a transgender woman that's never been able to be out as a woman, as female, the power transforms her body from that of a teen male to a teen female.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so she all of a sudden she has the body that fits who she is inside. But now she has to go back home and she has to explain this to her trans misogynistic father and her best friend, who thinks it's okay to basically own her because, hey, we're best friends and you're hot now and I want to stick my tongue down your throat, so I'm going to do that. And the superhero team of like the city, which Dreadnought was a part of, they end up finding her and calling her in. And it's interesting to see everybody navigate the fact that she's transgender, um, because it altered her on the inside, but she still has like chromosomes and different things that indicate that she was born male, if that makes sense.
So, do they know early on that that's the situation?
Yes, yeah, the
Okay.
team does, and some of them you can see it's like fine, it doesn't matter if they welcome her no matter what. But there is one member of the team that is a hardcore turf. And for those of you that don't know what the term turf is, it is a feminist that believes that transgender women are not really women, and they don't belong in women's spaces. They should not be acknowledged as women. They're not real women. Some go so far, like they did in this book, which was incredibly painful to read. It was like it was so real without beating you over the head that you felt like you were in the scene with Danny as she's dealing with this woman who's telling her, "Oh, you're just confused about gender. It's not your fault. This isn't who you really are." Or her father, who's incredibly abusive to begin with, so much so that she had before she got power, she had hearing loss because her father would scream in one ear in particular, and it cost her her hearing as a child. But with Dreadnought's power, she has her hearing back. But so you're in these scenes with her as she's trying to tell people, this is really me. This is who I am. And experiencing the rejection of that. And it's not all about that, but that is a really big part of it. While she also tries to navigate, who am I with these powers? Do I want to be Dreadnought? Do I not want to be Dreadnought? Oh my God, I can fly. That's so cool. But oh my God, how do I land? Like I want to hide this. And she ends up meeting a friend named Calamity, who kind of introduces her to the underground world of vigilantism. And they go out and they have little missions together. And it's really cool. It's like Calamity knows that she's trans, and it never, it's like acknowledged and they move on. It's almost the perfect friendship in those terms where it's like, yeah, okay, I know. Let's go do this now. And so it's just, they go off and they do it. And so Danny's journey is not just about convincing people that this is who she is, but it's also about accepting all these new parts of herself, of her life. Like, who is she going to be now that she can be a girl, outwardly? That she's one of the world's strongest superheroes. What does all that mean for her? So it's this real coming of age journey and exploring identity. And it's not even that long, but it has got so much in it. And I cannot recommend this book enough.
The closest thing that it's coming to mind is Shazam,
Yeah.
because he's the an 10-year-old, 11-year-old,
Yeah, right
um,
around there.
and he becomes basically Superman, but
Hmm.
he's still a child in a
Yeah.
man's body.
Yeah.
Um, but I, what little I have read of it, there's never a situation. There is a couple of times where people in the Justice League who have figured it out are like, are you allowed to be out this late? Like,
Yeah.
but it's never a conflict,
Hmm.
um, as far as that goes. So,
Yeah, there was some real, like, they had to talk about her age because nobody that young had ever been Dreadnought. And so it was, we don't allow people as young as you to go out, and yet you're the most powerful member of the team. So if there's a crisis, we kind of need to use you. And so there were some questions about that. The thing that it was a kind of a little thing, but it was really neat is, um, so Danny, I mean, all the images that she's seeing of the ideal woman are basically underwear models, right? So she goes to the mall and there's these beautiful models with their perfect bodies, and so of course that is the ideal self that she ends up turning into. So she ends up, I mean, the body she ends up getting, they say it a couple of times, is like a 16-year-old supermodel. It's perfect, but it's not because they're like that's what you have to have. It's not because a chubbier physique was less ideal. It was just that those are the messages she was getting, and she feels kind of conflicted about it in a couple of moments where it's like, yeah, this is great, but it would have been great if I was any size, kind of a thing, you know. And then they move on from that. It's not like that's a big deal, but I did love that acknowledgement. Like your ideal body could be in any shape or size as long as it reflects who you are on the inside. I really appreciated that.
And I think for a 16-year-old, who they are at that point is still greatly impacted by the society around them. And,
Yes.
let's bombard them with some more size zeros.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
So, what about the actual so there's all it sounds like there's almost like a social commentary. Does that run parallel to um I don't know, like a villain s story? Like, I'm assuming the villain that killed the first Dreadnought or the second Dreadnought.
Yeah, the second Dreadnought. Yes, there is a villain story that comes to play, and there's a nice twist. I'm not going to ruin it, but there is a very nice
Okay.
twist with the villain that I suspected like a chapter before it was revealed. I was like, oh, nicely done. So it wasn't something that I figured out super early and was annoyed by, but I figured it out just early enough to where I was like, oh, yes, I was right, you know. There's a good villain story. There's a really epic battle at the end. And there's actually a couple of sad moments at the end too, with certain characters. Um, there is an excruciating confrontation between Danny and her father that
Oh,
left me simultaneously cheering and very sad inside. So it was just it had all the right emotional beats. It just beautifully done.
did the story between her and her father mirror anything with the villain?
No, I
Because it almost
didn't.
sounds like the father could have been the real villain of the story versus a superpowered person.
That's interesting. I never thought of it quite like that, but now that you say that, I think he was more like a sub-villain. It was almost
Okay.
like he was the villain to her really being able to just be who she was. It was like she had to continuously fight for the right of it. And so he was in terms of that, he was the villain that kept her from being able to really just be who she was in her own skin.
And for a person that picked this up, where do you think they should? Uh, what level of openness should they have to be able to appreciate both storylines? Do you think?
You mean in terms of like being open to transgender?
Yeah, because I could imagine that this is the type of book that like someone who is extremely bigoted is going to pick up and just, oh, it's going to end badly.
Yeah, I think it would, honestly. I think you have to, it's such a big part of her journey. It's such a big part of who she is that I think you really do have to be open to it. Um, the one thing I will say, as big a part as it is, I never felt beaten over the head with it. I never felt
Okay.
beaten over the head with politics around it or SJW issues or anything. I never felt like that. It felt genuinely woven into everything going on with her. Um,
How do you feel a person's knowledge about trans people? Like, what level of knowledge should they have prior to walking in?
I don't think you have to have any,
Oh,
really. I
that's
mean, just
good.
if you have an open mind and you have kind of I would like to know more about this. I think that you get a lot out of it. Me who has read a lot and knows several transgender people and has heard about their experiences, I still got a lot out of it
Okay.
because it's written by a woman that went through it. And I really think like as much as I want to write books that have characters that are LGBTQ and not white, and I can do all the homework in the world and do all the sensitivity readers that I want, but I will still never come to that just very delicate depth of understanding that somebody like April Daniels would have. Um, so
So,
I think for own voices, it's really good to read it from somebody that's been there.
what, how low would you go for an age bracket to read?
I think honestly, I think about 13 or 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still found it entertaining
Oh, very much. Yeah.
at
Very.
your.
It's definitely YA, but not, I mean, I know 13 and 14, a lot of people say that's middle grade, and I think it would depend on the maturity of the reader. Like, my oldest is mature in terms of she understands a lot and she reads at a very high level, but she's 10, and even though she could read this book perfectly and understand all of it, I wouldn't let her read it because she's just
Okay.
not emotionally mature enough yet to handle it. So,
Well, that's kind of nice. The fact that younger people who might be going through those issues have a role model, both the
mhm.
author and the character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
it's so I don't know if you know about Shade in the X-Men.
I don't actually.
So I'm gonna get this horribly wrong because I only did some, like, the character hasn't shown up into where I'm rereading right now. But I believe is either the first trans character in
Hmm.
Marvel or the first drag queen in Marvel. And
Oh,
I'm
wow.
I'm not sure which, so don't crucify me on that. But I was sitting in, so I teach illustration at the high school level, and we always talk comics and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And there is a young gay boy in my class, and he's talking to a couple of the girls around him, and he's got a tab open on his screen, and I'm like, what are you looking at that you're probably not supposed to? And when I go back to my computer, which I can see all their screens from, he's reading about Shade. So I just thought
That is cool.
there are definitely those moments where you'd think that those characters won't connect, and people are sneaking around to learn more about them.
Yes. And that
So,
is actually a perfect segue for you and your book club book.
oh, look, I found an
Speaking about
actual
the X-Men.
segue.
Oh my God. Oh my God. But
Woo!
yes, represent. I mean, it's so cringeworthy almost to say at this point, but representation really does matter. It is important. So anyway, what was yours book club selection for February?
Okay, so I actually wound up doing an entire run of X-Men. Um,
How many issues is that?
so it's, I think, 18
Oh
issues.
my God.
Um,
Are those trades?
so you can
18 trades?
you can buy them in trade. It's three separate trades, and I think that there's a hardback compendium of it. Um, so I decided to do, as everyone who loves X-Men knows, Chris Claremont is really the man who put X-Men on the map. Before
Mhm.
that, they were a little hokey, they were a little questionable, and he took them and turned them into long-running arcs where some of his plot lines were slated 5 years in advance because he just
Ooh,
wanted to drag them out. If you haven't watched
wow.
the Amazon Prime Chris Claremont behind the scenes, I absolutely suggest it. So he came back, and literally X Men fans rejoice. And so what I'm going to talk about is the comic X Men: The End is the overarching, and it comes down to, and I'm going to get this out of order. I'm still going to get out of order. It's the end. Men and X Men, Heroes and Martyrs, and Dreamers and Demons.
Oh, I love those titles.
And all the titles give you hints as to what's going on, which makes it
Oh,
so. I've reread. This is my fourth time rereading it, and there were subtle nods that I found myself being like, "Oh, I missed this." The first three reads.
hmm.
So essentially, what happens is Chris Claremont and Sean Chen get together, and they are going to write the end of the X Men. That is the plot.
Wow.
And it's going to be the end of everything as you know it. And for many characters, it's just simply the end. And it takes place in a weird timeline. So in 60 plus years, the X Men have only aged like 10 years. And in this, um, Cyclops has children who are in their tween age.
Hmm.
Um, Gambit and Rogue have children in their tween ages. Colossus has a son who's in his teens. Um,
Wow.
so they grew up, and we're
Hmm.
watching the aftermath. And so, do you need to read any other X-Men comics to get this? I want to say no. You're going to appreciate on your own, but there are definitely some key moments that are going to come into
Hmm.
play.
Well, of course, yeah. And comics are so like intertwined. That's why most people just don't jump into a comic run. It's just too crazy.
And Chris Claremont is finishing it the Chris Claremont way. He is taking the stories that he made, that he set up, that
Hmm.
Marvel ultimately said, and we get to find out some of the best things about it. So, where does this fall in the X-Men timeline? It was written in 2006, and
Oh, wow, that's sooner than, I mean, like, that's more recent than what I would have guessed.
yeah, he went back to the X-Men for quite some time, and it got good again. Like my version good.
Yeah.
So what this does is all the X-Men are going about their business. They're the XSE is currently the international recognized organization of X-Men that do crime solving. They go be heroic and help the world be a better place. Xavier School exists as Xavier School, and it has thousands of attendees at this point,
Oh,
and all
wow.
mutants. It's just blown up everywhere. And the only thing that we know pretty early on is that Chris Claremont, outside of his run, has decided to use Extreme X-Men, which was Storm's team when they were following Destiny's Diaries,
Hmm.
as part of the plot. And also, he pulled the death of mutants on Genosha and uh, Xavier's twin sister, Cassandra. So
Okay.
those things get brought up, and you're kind of like, okay, so now I know where he's sourcing some of his material from. So I will warn you, there I am so gonna spoil some stuff, but I'll warn plenty in advance. So basically, what happens is we are introduced to a new character. It's the daughter of Bishop and
Okay.
um, Lilandra's sister, whose name is Warbird. Oh my
That
god,
was Carol Danvers,
yeah,
Warbird.
I can't even think about it now. Um, uh,
Just too
but
many X-Men. There's too many.
there's easily over 100 X-Men that are shown, and about 40 of them actually get plot points. So
Oh my
it's a
God.
lot to digest really quick. But we're introduced to this character, and for a little while, Bishop and Lilandra's sister, are trapped together, and the um, come to find out, she gets pregnant, and
Okay.
we don't see her again for a very long time in the actual comic, so it could work into the actual plot line. And she's on the Starjammer that's been deserted for years, and the only person on the Starjammer is the artificial intelligence um, Carol Danvers. So Carol Danvers gave
Huh.
up her physical body, and she is now the AI of the Starjammer. How did that
Um,
happen? She gave up her body to finish killing the Brood. Do I need to know? No, but if someone wrote that comic, I would read it.
I'm just
Um,
like, oh my God. I don't know how I feel about that.
and and so all of this is happening, and the plot takes off because our favorite X-Men of all time is back, Jean Grey, who, don't argue with me, Wolverine,
Nice.
no one cares.
Nice.
Um,
I care about them together. I ship that,
well,
but
well,
I know, I know.
Jean Grey gets her druthers.
Nice.
She gets snicked.
What do you mean? Well,
Yeah.
oh wow.
So,
Okay.
it and both a good way and a dirty way and a not good way. Like it happens all over
Okay.
the place.
Yeah, my
So,
head's trying to wrap around all of those options.
so what basically happens is Aaliyah, the daughter of Bishop, is on an island, on a planet, trying to figure out why she got this mayday and what's going on. And we have no idea. And all of a sudden, Nightcrawler's daughter shows up to try and kill him because she's been turned into a hound. And oh yeah, Ahab comes into this. And
Jeez.
I was telling Trish before this all the storylines, and it's just in
It's
18
huge.
issues you wouldn't think it was possible. And so the person that the slavers have that they're trying to trade is Jean Grey. And she gets freed, and moments later she reconnects with the Phoenix Force, and everything happens, and the Brood get used as biological weapons to destroy the planet, and
Oh God. Oh
we
my
move
God.
along. So, because the Phoenix has arrived, something about the Shi'ar Empire wants the X-Men dead. They think it's all connected, and so they send war scrolls that have been here for decades, and they just start to annihilate the X-Men. And I mean, don't fall in love with anyone. There's a good chance they're not going to make it.
Oh
Um,
man, I both love and hate
it
comics for that, and the X-Men in particular for that reason.
and what I love about it is they get the send off they've always deserved because Chris Claremont loves these people.
Yeah,
And
you can
so
tell.
the War Scrolls come in, they destroy the school. Rain Sinclair dies saving her students. And I mean, it's just
Dude.
it's emotional impact after emotional impact, along with action and emotional impact. And meanwhile, Sinister finds out what's going on, and he decides, "Oh crap, I need to protect what I'm supposed to be protecting." And all of this is somehow linked together, and we don't understand why. And Chris Claremont knows how to hide some of the obvious,
Mm.
but he goes back to things that we've always wanted that we never got. The third Summers brother. I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
So in X-Men 32, I don't
I
know
thought
why I
that was
remember
an
that.
urban myth, like Richie's older brother on Happy Days.
So he eventually was supposed to be Adam X, and he was such a 90s Beverly Hills 90210 trash character that they got rid of him, and
You're
they
like,
didn't.
no.
No. And then later on they made him Vulcan. Ugh. Ugh. So no one cares. Like, really, we don't care. And we don't understand why Sinister knows all about this and nobody else. Well, Chris Claremont had a plan. I'm going to tell you right now, guys, the spoiler is going to happen, and it's just going to be spoiler after spoiler after spoiler. We find out that Mr. Sinister is somebody else that we've always known was connected to him. Gambit. And you wonder,
What?
how can Sinister and Gambit be the same person? Well, Sinister and Apocalypse always played the sick game of Apocalypse rebirthing his body and putting his essence into the new body. Well,
Okay.
Sinister is the one who invented that technique. Or Apocalypse taught it to Sinister, so Sinister made himself a new body. And Apocalypse, knowing that Sinister was trying to betray him, liberated the body.
Oh my God.
And
This is some epic next level soap opera stuff here. I mean,
it's coming 20 something years into the future. Like, Chris Claremont has been waiting for this moment. And
oh my
so
God.
we find out that Gambit is actually the clone of Sinister mixed with Summer's DNA. And he wanted the next clone to be Summers and Jean Grey's DNA so that he could inhabit that body. We finally find out why he's been trying to
Oh my
get their
God.
DNA. And to this day, no one's ever said why he's been after their DNA. And Claremont's like, I've been sitting on this. So we find this out. Sinister kills Rogue, and and Gambit shows up, and you're like, yes, he's going to avenge his dead wife. It's not actually Gambit, it's Mystique. And then Gambit shows up, and now there's a lot of Gambits. And
Oh my
so
God.
the most touching moment is when Mystique finally refers to Gambit as her son. There is just so many feels going through it. Um,
This
so
sounds so big. This
it's
story
so
sounds
big.
so big.
And there is one of the scenes, and this is something I hated Claremont for. And it wasn't Claremont entirely doing it. It was Marvel that did it to Claremont under the table. He killed Jean Grey with the deal that she could never come back. So
Okay, is this the Phoenix saga? The Dark
yeah,
Phoenix saga?
uh,
Because that was that Claremont? I think that
yeah,
was.
Claremont kills her in that.
Yeah.
And she's never allowed to come back. That's part of the deal. She can never come back, never on the X-Men, just done. And so what they do was they turned X-Men into X Factor and they brought her back. Meanwhile, he's been with Madeline Pryor. They've had a kid together. They're married, and he goes and cheats on his wife and goes back with Jean Grey. And Claremont was pissed.
But Madeline was basically Jean's clone, if I remember
And
correctly.
and she eventually becomes the Goblin Queen because she is a woman spited.
Well, yeah.
Well, come to find out, she's not dead, and she comes back, and she's out to kill Cyclops, and we don't know any of this. This is all behind the
God,
scenes stuff.
this is incredible.
And the whole time, she's about to kill him, and he starts going through all the mistakes he's made in his life, and he ends on that one. And for me, it's Claremont's giant middle finger to Marvel for how they took
Yeah.
plots that he had with characters that we loved, that he toyed with our emotions, and then Marvel just started this resurrection machine.
Yeah.
And we get a good Madeline Pryor ending. We get the Phoenix ending that we wanted. And
Oh, wow.
ultimately, the whole Shi'ar Empire comes back to one simple mistake that Charles Xavier made. I'm not going to go into all of that because it is well worth the read. But if you just want the stories written the way you wanted them written, Chris Claremont delivers. And Sean Chen, let me just make sure I'm saying the name correctly here because that would just be a mistake. Um, I do that. Give me the darn cover. Again, we were just talking about how horrible the Marvel app is. It is so bad.
It is so bad.
Marvel, please just get your act together.
You have
Um,
tech savvy readers. Act like you have tech savvy readers and just do a decent app for crying out loud.
and I'm literally clicking all the buttons.
So we are running out of time. Unfortunately, I feel like we needed to devote more time to this. This feels like a really big,
Yes,
epic thing
so
to talk about. But like, what if you're somebody like me? Like, I haven't read a ton of X-Men. I've read the seminal ones like Days of Future Past, Dark Phoenix Saga, um, those
so
kinds of books. What would you recommend for someone like me to read if I wanted to get the most out of this? Like three
um
comments, maybe.
okay, so you must absolutely read Inferno. One, just
Okay.
because it's probably one of the best series that was ever written, period. It it is monumental. I think it's like 40 comics when all said and done.
Jeez.
Um
Okay. Inferno.
so Inferno must happen. And then I would probably say the Death of Genosha is pretty
Okay.
important. And then I would actually say um the Dark Phoenix saga is probably, and those three I think would give you all the background you need for the more deep stuff. Um, there'll be plenty of geek finds for the people who have read from the beginning, but those moments aren't going to be lessened. Um,
Mm.
so I Inferno, Dark Phoenix saga, Death of Genosha, and then this, and I think you are going to get the full X-Men experience.
Awesome. And did Claremont write all of those?
He wrote the Phoenix, and I believe someone please quote me. If he didn't write Inferno, it feels like a Claremont storyline, but I
Okay.
don't think he did Genosha.
Okay.
Um, so the one good news I will give you is I decided to do this one first to get it out of my system. I My goal is to keep. I'm going to go X-Men free for a year, so I'm not going to bring them. I'm not going to bring them back up for comic book material for a while.
Oh my God, dude. Are you going to be okay?
I already know what my next one's going to be.
Oh, okay. Do we want to announce our next ones? Because I've got mine too.
Oh, do you? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, let's do it then.
Okay, you go first. What
Okay.
is your March book club book going to be?
Okay, I am going to stay with Marvel for this one because this is such a change of pace and an emotional piece. It's also, you can start with it and never have read anything else.
Awesome.
And that is Daredevil's Man Without Fear.
Oh my God, that is really good. It's like the one Daredevil I've ever read. It's so good.
So much iconography about Daredevil comes from that, and it is so gut-wrenching and satisfying.
Yes, that is the perfect description of that. Okay, and mine is the Binti, Binti trilogy, the whole trilogy. And this is a trilogy of novellas, so they're not that long. They're science fiction. You could also call them Afrofuturist books. They are written by Nnedi Okorafor. I am butchering that name, and I'm going to look up the pronunciation. I was not prepared.
Surprise!
Surprise! But Binti is phenomenal. I've already started in on it. My in-laws got me the whole trilogy in one volume for my birthday, and I had read the first novella like last year and loved it and never got around to the others. So I'm reading the whole trilogy of novellas, and you can get all three of them in one volume. I highly recommend that because it's a really neat narrative flow between the novellas. But it's really cool. It's about a girl who's part of a tribe of people that never leave their area of Earth, and she ends up getting accepted, the first of her people ever to get accepted to this intergalactic university. And something really tragic, but ultimately historic and healing ends up happening on the ship. And the cool thing is mathematics is kind of her superpower, literally.
Interesting.
It turns her into what they call a master harmonizer. It's really cool. Mathematics as a superpower. And that's all I'm going to tell you about it, because it's really good.
I think that would have been my super weakness.
Me too. But I love the way she talks about math in this. It makes me wish I was better at math.
That's going to be a hard sell. You are going to have to convince me of that one.
Yeah, I will try my best. So anyway, those are our book club picks for March, if anybody would like to read along with us.
And we will make sure to link to the Facebook group where we'll be chit-chatting about this stuff. And we will make sure to link to the materials so that if you want to join us along with this, we'll link it to the old stuff that we just talked about and to the new stuff.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely.
And I think that's a wrap.
I think it is. And I think I got to go find me some more X-Men comics.
I just give you a list.
I want to read Inferno now. I've read the Dark Phoenix saga and I really liked it. So now I'll just get Inferno from the library. See if I can do that.
The classic Goblin Queen blue thing. The best moment is when someone is singing Devil in a Blue Dress.
Oh.
It's just, it's eloquent.
Now I can't wait. I'm really excited now.
I rooted for her to win. I'm going to admit it.
Nothing wrong with a good villain.
Yeah.
The best villains make you kind of want them to win, in my opinion. All right.
So
that's it for us, everybody.
Okay, have a good week, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Bye, everyone.
To stay up to date with the Geekorama podcast, you can watch our videos on YouTube or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoyed the show, leave us a review or hit the thumbs up button. New episodes are released on Thursdays for podcast listeners and YouTube fans.